Hi everyone, it's Jerry. This is round 9 from the 2013 World Chess Championship match between Anand and Carlsen. Going into this round, Carlsen has a 5-3 lead over Anand. This is a race to 6.5 points to determine a world champion. And Anand, with the white pieces in this one, opened with d4. This is the first time he's played this. All other moves, it was e4 when he had white. But coming right out, needing a win, trying d4. And soon enough on board, we have the Nimzo-Indian defense, and to be more exact, the Camacho variation with f3, looking to build the center. Black interferes with this idea, and now a question is thrown to the bishop, to take or to go elsewhere. Going elsewhere, keep in mind, allows e4 to be played much more freely, and we can have this structure, but that's not a road we go down. Instead, black wastes no time, invests the bishop pair, damages the white structure, and will now look to put pressure on the d4 point. c5 is played right away, and it may seem counterintuitive to do that. Keep in mind, white has the bishop pair. Isn't this just welcoming exchanges when you're the side who doesn't have the bishop pair? So why is that even played? Well, it involves keeping pressure on d4, and by doing so, you interfere with what white's plan will be to get the e4 break in. Keep in mind that even if this pawn is supported enough and it could play to e4, well, notice how after this capture, the queen would be a third piece that would be around to put pressure on the d4 point. So clearly there's not enough support for it just yet, but I'm looking more long term. The idea will be to make sure you put pressure on d4. First, some clarification in the center, and with e3, the bishop now looks to play to a nice diagonal where it would support the e4 advance. This structure, by the way, is one that is we saw in a very popular game from 1938, Botvinnik versus Capablanca. Botvinnik playing the white side, winning a very nice game. It involved getting in this central expansion, and a really nice game to certainly check out. But in this one, much different, because we don't have the bishop on d3 just yet. And so where will he reside? Well, we will see that soon enough. But before I point that out, notice what this pawn is doing. It's not just stopping the bishop from getting on this diagonal. It's watching over b3 as well. It's allowing this queen knight to be annoying to the white queen side, and at the same time it's releasing the pressure on d4, so all of a sudden maybe that's not so much a concern for white, right? If e4 is played, there's not going to be the d4 point that's weakened without the c pawn around putting pressure on it. So e4 can be played without any concern about the d4 square. So black is weighing that it would be better to inconvenience the bishop, grab some space, and look to camp out on b3. Knight e2 is it. The knights are developed classically. g4 is inserted first before playing the knight to g3. So that bishop g2 could be played, and this also brings a question to the knight. Is he so stable anymore on the f6 square? He has to wonder where his next home will be should g5 be played. Black castles, bishop g2, here comes the queen knight. White castles, the rook is hit, functioning better on a2 opposed to b1 so that it has some lateral movement. And now black sets into motion their majority, 3 versus 2. This is a very, very nice game, something that is reminding me of game 4 of this match, where we saw the whole chessboard being made use of. Action on the king side, the center, as well as the queen side, where there is a majority here for black. Looking forward to a5, b4, and one of these two pawns, one of the black pawns, b pawn or c pawn, will become passed. And in the meantime, what white will look to do is advance on the king side. White is looking to checkmate the black king. So it is first knight g3, here comes black, and with g5 the knight is kicked back to e8. Keep in mind that this move is also allowing for rook a6, some lateral movement for the rook, something I overlooked during the game. It's not just to get this majority rolling, but some interesting lateral defense with the rook pivoting on a6 is maybe available. And so we did have g5. During the game, I thought about this sacrifice, and, well, I overlooked that there is this defense if the bishop is in fact playing to g5 to pin the knight. And I also underestimated maybe this idea at some point by black. b4, by making this c-pawn flinch, well, d4 is close to crumbling, so it's not without some drawbacks. Certainly there's activity for the white pieces, but black has their chances as well in such a position. So we don't see that. White does not give up any material, instead kicks the knight back, and now as the follow-up e4, and up until this point you'll note the knight is never taking the bishop. He's superior to the bishop at this point. Where is he going to go? If he plays to d2, you could always take him if he's trying to run away. And if he's going to b2, well, that just looks weird. He's not doing anything. It also interferes with the rook. So you'll note only after e4 is played and the bishop has a couple ways to escape the knight's capture, well, now he's taken. Queen takes, rook lift, and now comes e5. So soon we're going to have 3 pawns, maybe, in the black position. Currently 2. White has a great space advantage over black on the king side. And what will black look to do? Black will look to get in b4, get the majority, still rolling, create some passed pawn on the queen side. But soon enough, we're going to have a group of potentially 3 pawns in the black position on this 5th rank. That's a very menacing group of pawns. And how is black going to approach this situation? Well, it's first knight c7, and that was played with a great deal of thought. How much? About 21 minutes was invested on this move. And so what else was being considered? Well, notice how with e5, it's f5 that has been weakened, and so g6 is a move that cries out to control that square, and then to follow up with knight g7, watching over f5. Now, how could white follow up? Well, we can have f4, knight g7, but as Carlsen pointed out in the press conference, he didn't like this idea of queen b1, pressure on b5, and also keeping a watchful eye over f5. Playing a move like queen d7 to defend both of these squares is a bit awkward. It is not a road he chose to go down. Keep in mind there would be additional pressure like so. He didn't want to enter this structure. He wanted something different. He kept his pawns sitting, in other words. He didn't touch them until this pawn eventually gets to f6, and we do get to see that in this game. And with that pawn on f6, white again is really looking for the king's throat, looking to give checkmate on g7. Knight c7 is played, f4 is played, b4 is played, kingside play, queenside play. Pawns are exchanged. The knight is now inconvenienced far away from the defense of the black king. f5 is now played, a group of 3 pawns, and with that clears the way for the queen to pivot on f4, get to h4, with f6, g6, queen h6, again looking for mate on g7. b3 first. I thought that this was a possibility to eliminate this pawn so the knight can maybe hop into d3 by way of b4, but not the direction black goes in. b3 instead, connected pass pawn, the b pawn just 2 steps away from queening, and now this knight better hurry back since these 2 squares are ruled out. Knight c7 in response to queen f4. f6 is played, weakening the dark squares, breaking down the structure, a giant thorn in the black position. Will there be a defense of g7? Queen h4. Just in the nick of time, the knight is there on e8 to defend against g7. There were 2 squares where you could have defended against g7, and I had thought this might have also been a way to defend. But notice how he is accessible to the white pieces when he's on e6. After queen h6, I thought maybe queen c7, so that even if the knight is captured, there could be a capture with the pawn on f7. For example, after bishop b7, I thought you could do this, and then after the recapture, the queen would be there to defend. This is often a good way to defend, but not in this position, because there are other possibilities that are available to white. The bishop, when it plays to h3, is not looking necessarily to capture the knight, but to support a knight hop into f5. For example, bishop b7, knight f5. If he's taken, mate will follow soon enough on h7. And if the knight is not taken, well, look what he's ready to do. Give check, and then big trouble. So, for example, rook here. Well, notice how there's knight d6. And, well, what are you going to do? If the rook plays here, there's a really nice tactical shot of knight takes f7. This is simply crumbling for black. If king takes, well, we're taking the knight. If king takes bishop, it's just simply falling apart. So the idea here is to not make the knight accessible to capture. You don't place the knight on e6. You go to e8. He's more reliable to defend over g7. But what to do now about this rook lift, where white could give mate on h7? Well, b2 interferes with this idea. If rook f4, black is able to get a queen with check. That's what we see on the board. Rook f4 is played, allowing Carlsen to obtain yet another queen, 2 queens, but white is going right for the king's throat. Will there be a defense? Knight f1 is played, and this was a serious blunder. So much so that after queen to e1, Anand resigned. There is no rook h4. The queen will just take the rook out. Rook h4, this is just an extra piece. And now there's absolutely no mate against the black king. Just like that. Game over. The better try would have been to interpose with the bishop. Since rook e1 or queen e1, well, you're still playing here, and it's black who goes down. Maybe, well, no, there's not going to be some perpetual check, I don't believe, in this position. This is going to turn out to be a mate. There's queen e3, king g2, and, well, what else is there? Some check here. You can block with the bishop. Nothing is being done here still about the threat of mate on h7. So we wouldn't have, of course, if the bishop blocks, we wouldn't have queen e1, but what we would have is queen d1. This was the better try, of course. What would follow is rook h4, and now the queen is able to sneak back to interpose on h5. What a fantastic resource this is. Knight takes queen, pawn takes knight. Rook takes, and now notice with that pawn no longer around on g6, bishop f5 is there, just in the nick of time to defend h7. Look at the minor pieces and the role they are serving, watching over the king's defense. Bishop h3 tries to kick the bishop away, and you best not play queen d7 because of this killer shot, g6. Big trouble here for Team Black. If we had this sort of capture, he's going down like this. You could have some fun and see how exactly White's going to win here. This is, I guess, one quick way to do it. So you need to be very cautious at this point right here. If the bishop is challenged, you don't play queen d7. You just tuck the bishop back. And if you are now having e6, well, we can invest some material to release the pressure. The black pieces are springing about, and at the end of it, this is going to be a much better approach by white. But black is still up a pawn, but has some issue here with the pawn on e6. Bishop back here as a defense. We didn't go down that road. There is one other possibility at this point right here. After knight takes, pawn takes, if bishop here, not allowing the bishop to defend by way of f5, well, notice how there could be this capture, and then after queen b6, white is ready to give mate. Just a moment away, but there's a timely check, and the queen can always zip right back and defend. So there wouldn't be a good way to go about things if bishop is playing to h3 first instead of capturing on h5. But as it was in this game, we had it ending much more abruptly. After the promotion, it is the knight block, and after queen to e1, Anand ends up resigning, and this match is now set at 6 points for Carlsen, 3 points for Anand. A huge mountain to climb, almost nearly insurmountable. Carlsen needing now only a half a point to become the world champion. So we will see soon enough. And as always, I hope you got something out of this video. Take care. Bye.